Welcome everyone to the Centers for International Business Education Technical Assistance webinar. As all of you probably know, the fiscal year 2022 competition opened on Monday, November 1st. It will close on December 16th. And today I just want to talk about the competition, sort of what to expect, give some tips, and answer any questions that you have. You all are muted right now, and that's the way you'll remain. But if you have any questions, you can put them into the chat box as we go. And at the end, there should be plenty of time for me to answer them for you. So this is what we will cover today. We'll cover the competition, the requirements of the program, the selection criteria for the competition, say a couple of words about evaluation, and I'll take some questions and provide answers for you. So we have $4,571,400 appropriated to this program, to this competition, for fiscal year 2022. This is the same amount that was appropriated the last competition and every year of that grant period. We anticipate once again making 16 awards. We ended up making 15 last time, but it all depends on the way that the competition shakes out. We could once again choose 15. There could be 16. There could even be 17, but we anticipate making 16 awards. We expect the range of awards, given the amount of money that's appropriated, to fall between $265,000 and $305,000 per grantee per year. So that's the sort of range that we expect. I think all of you know that this is a 4-year grant with 1 year of funding provided at a time. Any subsequent years of funding, so years 2, 3, and 4, depend on our, once again, getting congressional appropriation, as well as good performance on the part of the grantee. There is a reporting requirement for this program. That's discussed to some extent in the application. And if you get the award, obviously there'll be much more information about that. So the competition will look very much like the last competition. In fact, pretty much identical to it. We're using the same 2 competitive preference priorities, which I'll talk about in a minute. And we're using the same invitational priority as last time. Keep in mind that there aren't any awards, there aren't any points awarded for invitational priorities. It's more a matter of us seeing what you can do with that priority. It's not something that you're required to do. You're not required to do the competitive preference priorities either, but because there are points associated with them, 5 points each, it's definitely in your interest to answer those competitive preference priorities. There is a 50 or a 55-page limit, depending on whether or not you're looking at the NIA or the application. There were changes made in clearance, but you can follow the 55-page suggested limit. And it is a suggested limit. It's not required. If you go over a page or 2, you will not be deemed ineligible. We will still score the application. It's not an eligibility issue. But at the same time, you might not want to go too far over 55 because your reviewers will be doing a lot of reading in a short period of time, and you don't want to annoy them. So yeah, you can do 55 pages. You can go a little bit over if you want. You can go under. It's not going to affect your eligibility. So we have 2 competitive preference priorities. Each one is worth up to 5 points. They are both discussed in detail in both the NIA and the application. But they are the same as the last time. So one is collaboration with a professional association or business. So applications that propose to collaborate with one or more professional associations and/or businesses on activities that are designed to expand employment opportunities for international business students, such as internships and work-study opportunities. That's the first one. The second one is, once again, collaboration with minority-serving institutions or community colleges. So these are for applications that propose significant and sustained collaborative activities with one or more MSIs, and the definition of an MSI is in the notice, and or with one or more community colleges as defined in the notice. Those activities must be designed to incorporate international, intercultural, or global dimensions into the business curriculum of the MSIs and or community colleges. Also, if the applicant institution is an MSI, that institution can propose intra-campus collaborative activities instead of or in addition to collaborative activities with other MSIs or community colleges. So in other words, if you already are an MSI, you can propose collaborative activities on your campus and without reaching out to other MSIs or community colleges and still get the points for this particular competitive preference priority. And then finally, there is an invitational priority. This is for applications that propose programs or activities focused on language instruction and or performance testing and assessment to strengthen the preparation of international business professionals. As far as program requirements go, you must form an advisory council. And the advisory council must be in place prior to the completion of the application, and it must play a role in the development of the application. This is spelled out clearly in the statute, and it is an eligibility issue. If you submit an application that does not have an advisory council formed already, and that has not been playing an active role in the development of the application, then your application will be deemed ineligible. This has happened, by the way. So in my short time running this particular program, so please be aware of this. You must have an advisory council. It must follow the rules that are established in the statute. The statute plays out clearly what the membership is supposed to be on that advisory council. And so you need to take care to follow the rules that are established in the statute for this. As far as program requirements go, there are authorized expenditures as well as required activities and approved activities. And finally, this is a cost share program. I'll go through each of these in some detail. So there are authorized expenditures. So each grant under, according to the statute, each grant can be used to pay the federal share of the cost of planning, establishing, or operating a center, which includes the cost of faculty and staff travel in foreign areas, regions, or countries, teaching and research materials, curriculum planning and development, bringing visitor scholars and faculty to the center to teach or to conduct research, and training and improvement of the staff for the purpose of and subject to such conditions as the secretary finds necessary. So these are the activities that are the expenditures that are authorized. Those are what you can spend money on. Then there are mandatory or required activities. These are activities that shall be conducted by the centers. They are interdisciplinary programs that incorporate foreign language and international studies and training into business, finance, management, communication systems, and other professional curricula. This is straight from the statute, by the way, and the statute is reproduced in the application in its entirety. Second, interdisciplinary programs that provide business, finance, management, communication systems, and other professional training for foreign language and international studies faculty and degree candidates. Programs such as intensive language programs available to members of the business community and other professionals that are designed to develop their international skills, awareness, expertise, and so on. Another required activity is collaborative programs, activities, or research involving other institutions of higher education, local education agencies, professional associations, businesses, firms, combinations thereof, to promote the development of international skills, awareness, and expertise among current and prospective members of the business community. Another required activity is research that's designed to strengthen and improve the international aspects of business and professional education. And finally, research designed to promote the international competitiveness of American businesses and firms, including those that are not currently active in international trade. For approved activities, these are activities that you're allowed to do, but you're not compelled to do them. You're not required to do them. You can establish overseas internship programs for students and faculty, for example, that are designed to provide training and experience in international business activities. However, federal funds for that cannot be used to pay wages or stipends to any participant who is engaged in compensated employment as part of an internship program. You can also establish linkages overseas with institutions of higher education and other organizations that contribute to objectives associated with this grant. You can spend money on summer institutes in international business, in foreign area studies, and foreign language studies, and other international studies, again, that are designed to carry out the purposes of this program. You can develop opportunities for business students to study abroad. You can engage in outreach activities or consortia with business programs located at other institutions. And you can do other eligible activities as prescribed by the secretary. So the secretary might, during the course of this particular 4-year grant, might determine that there are other eligible activities and relay those to you, and then you can do them. This is also a cost share program. And the statute says the federal share or the cost of planning, establishing, and operating centers under this section shall be not more than 90% for the first year in which federal funds are received, not more than 70% for the second year, and not more than 50% for the third year and each of the year thereafter. So in other words, you're responsible for 10% in the first year. You're responsible for 10% of the total cost of the program, 30% of the total cost of the program in the second year, and 50% of the total cost of the program in the third and fourth years. There's a quick equation that you can do to figure out what your share is. You multiply the amount of the grant. So if you're asking for, say, $250,000 for the first year, you multiply that by 1/9, and that'll give you what your share is. In the second year, you multiply, if it's $250,000, you multiply 250,000 times 3/7. And in the third and fourth years, you multiply 250,000, if that's what you're asking for, by 5/5, so by 1. So in the third and fourth year, if you're asking for $250,000, you would also have to cost share $250,000. So let's move on to the selection criteria. The first selection criterion is meeting the purpose of the authorizing statute. This is worth 20 points, so about 1/5 of the total. There's 100 points available plus 10 competitive points for a total of 110. So in this one, you'll describe the objectives of the project. and the extent to which they further the statutory provisions. Okay, so this is your chance to explain your overall vision and how your vision meets the purpose of the authorizing statute. Next is significance, the significance of the project. Again, worth 20 points. So these two together make up 40% of the total already. And so obviously you need to focus on the ones that make sure that you get these full points. In this one, you describe the national significance of the proposed project. Okay. These are national centers of excellence in international business. And so you have to design a project and a center that has national significance. Okay, so what is the national significance of the proposed project? You also must describe the importance or the magnitude of the results or outcomes that are likely to be attained by the proposed project. And you can also discuss the significance of regional and local activities as well, because obviously a lot of what you'll be doing will be regional and local. And so you can discuss that as well in this section. The third selection criterion is quality of the project design. This is worth 10 points. And here you describe the extent to which the proposed activities include a coherent, sustained program of research and development in the field, including, where appropriate, a substantial addition to an ongoing line of inquiry. So your reviewers will be looking at this selection criterion in terms of how well your proposed activities or the design of your proposed activities contribute to a sustained program of research and development. Next up, 10 points for the quality of the management plan. So you need to have a clear, coherent management plan that will convince your readers that you will achieve the objectives of the proposed project on time and within budget. And this plan should include clearly defined responsibilities, timelines, milestones, and so on for accomplishing the tasks of the project. Remember that your reviewers are doing risk assessment. They want to make sure that the money that you're asking for will be well spent, because we are dealing with taxpayer money here and we want to be responsible with it. So they want to ensure that there's as little risk as possible that your project will fail. They want to be convinced that you're going to succeed, and the quality of the management plan is a crucial part of this. They need to know that you've got a good plan for carrying out what it is that you want to do. Which leads us directly to the quality of the project personnel. Right? Not only do they want to make sure that you have a good plan, but they want to make sure you have the right people in place. So you need to describe the extent to which the qualifications of the project director or the PI, the principal investigator, meet the needs of the project. Describe the extent to which the qualifications, including relevant training and experience of key project personnel, meet the needs of the project. And also describe the extent to which the applicant encourages applications for employment from persons who are members of groups that have traditionally been underrepresented based on race, color, national origin, gender, age, or disability. Next is adequacy of resources. Again, this is all part of the risk factor, right? You want to have a good plan, you want to have the right people in place, and you want to have adequate resources for carrying out what it is that you're proposing to do. So to what extent are the costs reasonable in relation to the objectives that you set out? Sorry, I'm having trouble with my throat today. So describe the extent to which the costs are reasonable. Describe the adequacy of the support that you have at your disposal, the facilities, equipment, supplies, other resources that you'll bring to the table here in order to carry this out. Again, your reviewers are going to be looking at this to determine whether or not it's a good idea for us to grant federal tax dollars to you to carry out your project. So you want to convince them that you've got the right people, the right plan, and adequate resources for doing so. and then finally, there's the quality of the project evaluation. The application makes reference to a guidance on developing an evaluation plan. That has been removed. So if you have specific questions about your evaluation plan as you go, please feel free to email me or set up a phone call with me. I'm happy to talk to anybody about how best to develop an evaluation plan. It's worth 20 points. It's important. I suspect that most, if not all of you, have extensive experience with project evaluation. It's an important component of any program where you're accepting money from another entity. But it's important that you have a strong plan in place. And again, if you have any questions about it, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will get back to you as quickly as I can. And then finally, there are 10 points available for competitive preference priorities. There's the business collaboration priority, and there's the community college and MSI priority. You can do both of them. It says or there, I don't know why, but you can do both of them. You should do both of them, and it's worth a total of 10 points. So on offer is a total of 110 points for this particular competition. Two more things. First, the project performance measure form. I just put this in there to make the current grantees happy. It's not applicable. The PMFs are no longer being done. You do not need to prepare these, and you can just pretend as if they never happened. And finally, and this is really important, we just found out yesterday that G5 will be down for maintenance from December 9th through December 13th. So that's 5 days where G5 will not be available to you. So please plan accordingly. You have plenty of leeway here. You can plan to do particular work that week on the application that doesn't involve G5, perhaps. Or you can try to get it done before December 9th, and this doesn't even become an issue. But this is something that's completely out of our control. We don't have any say over this at all. I mean, I feel lucky that I even found out about it. But G5 will be down for maintenance December 9th through December 13th. Okay, please keep that in mind as you're preparing your work for this particular grant application. Okay, so now there's my contact information, and we have time for, we have plenty of time for questions. So I don't know if there are any in there yet. I haven't been looking. No questions yet. So any questions? What is G5? G5, sorry. G5 is the system that grants.gov submits the application to. So, sorry, I should have made that clear. So you'll be working in grants.gov, and then grants.gov submits the application to G5. But between December 9th and December 13th, there's going to be nothing that's going to be possible to be done in G5. So anything that gets submitted between December 9th and 13th could be lost. I would not submit anything in grants.gov between December 9th and December 13th, because what grants.gov does is it it just accepts the application and then transfers it over to G5. And that happens immediately, by the way. So sorry, I should have made that more clear. You'll be working in grants.gov, but we receive the applications in G5. The indirect cost is still 8%. That's standard for our grant programs because they are training programs, and so we cap the indirect cost at 8%. Review the mandatory expenses. So the mandatory expenses are they're spelled out clearly in the application. They're part of the statute. The statute is in the application. So you can always go there to find the exact wording for these things. But I'll quickly go through them. Interdisciplinary programs that incorporate foreign language and international studies and training into business, finance, management, communication systems, and other professional curricula. Interdisciplinary programs that provide business, finance, management, communication systems, and as well as professional training for foreign language faculty and degree candidates. Programs such as intensive language programs that are available to members of the business community and other professionals that are designed to develop or enhance their international skills, awareness, and expertise. Collaborative programs, activities or research involving other institutions to promote the development of international skills, awareness, and so on. Research that's designed to strengthen and improve the international aspects of business and professional education. And research that's designed to promote the international competitiveness of American businesses and firms, including those that are not currently active in international trade. There's a question, can you extend the deadline to December 20th, given the G5 situation? Unfortunately, no. We can't, we wouldn't have time to, we'd have to submit a change through OMB, and it's just not possible. But again, you can still do work during that time. It's just that, you know, you won't be able to submit, and you probably shouldn't submit during that time. So just to make sure that your application doesn't get lost. There's a question, would this grant apply for Latin America higher education institutions? I don't understand that question. Can you please elaborate? I don't understand what you mean by Latin America higher education institutions. Another question, when we partner with overseas institutions, say for study abroad and programs, can we use their personal T&E and actual dollars as part of our cost share? Or can't we mingle foreign funds with our cyber grant? It's a good question, Mike. I would say probably not, in part because we're talking about foreign funds. But I can follow up with our program attorneys to see what they say about that. The more I think about it, the more I think the answer is almost certainly no. But I can't say with any real authority, so I can reach out to the program attorneys. Another question, are previous awardees going to participate this year? Yes. Any U.S. institution of higher education is technically eligible for this grant, whether they have a current grant or not. The question is whether or not that particular institution, whichever one it is capable of carrying out the activities that are required by this program. What educational activities are not acceptable in this grant? I couldn't possibly list them all. There would be many, many, many. Anything that does not involve international business, for example, would not be acceptable. It's better to focus on what is acceptable, and you can find all of that in the statute. mandatory and authorized activities. Next question, what is the maximum level of funding we can apply for each year? It's usually more than we actually receive. Usually that's spelled out in the application. I think it's 365,000, but I'm not certain of that. You should be able to find it in there. Next question, can we work together with another current cyber center jointly for this grant proposal? Absolutely. This program does allow consortia. So you could apply as a consortium of institutions that operates one center. Are supporting letters from potential partners fine, or should the application include them as advisory members? Supporting letters from potential partners is a good thing to do. If you have partner institutions as part of your proposal, you should certainly provide a letter of support from them. Can you repeat again what was taken out of the quality of the project evaluation? Well, actually, the PMFs were taken out, the performance measure forms, but they weren't scored as part of the evaluation anyway. So taking them out just decreases your workload. It doesn't really affect how the points are distributed. But again, yes, the performance measure forms have been removed. How many advisory members are ideal? All you need is the number that is associated with the statute. There's a statute tells you what the membership should be, and you, as a minimum, you need those members as part of your advisory council. And again, that's clearly spelled out in the application. It's part of the statute, and the whole statute is included in the application. Is there a limit on the number of supporting letters? Sort of. The application says submit up to 5, but everything is suggested these days. So technically there's a limit, but you know, whatever you can submit, you can submit. But again, keep in mind that your readers are, you know, just don't overwhelm your readers. That's just the #1 rule of thumb. Keep it as simple as possible. Make sure that you point them to any support that you have in the appendices within the narrative. Make sure they know where to look for it. Make sure that what you're arguing in the narrative is as clear as possible, that it's logical, and again, that you take care to convince them that we wouldn't be taking a big risk if we were to provide you with the grant. On the competitive preference priorities, how is evaluation made? Number of collaborations versus fewer, deeper collaborations. It's definitely not the number of collaborations, it's the quality of those collaborations. So the competitive preference priority says that we were looking for significant and sustained activities in collaboration with these entities, MSIs and community colleges. So, you know, we're not looking for one half-day conference, in the second year of the grant. We're looking for significant and sustained activities throughout the course of the grant. And the reviewers will be judging that particular competitive preference priority on that basis. Can a center hire student assistants to manage the project? I mean, I wouldn't hire student assistants to manage the project, but you could have them play some particular, clearly defined role. Maybe they help you gather data or something like that. That's allowed. You can hire student assistants, but the way you're putting it here is to manage the project. That's gonna worry the reviewers if they see something like that in your application. Can administrative or faculty salaries be paid with grant funds to run projects? Yes, they can. A lot of grantees, as you know, will use cost share for this. But you can also use grant money. But I would make one very, very important suggestion, which is what the reviewers look for is how well the money is spent on the activities of the grant. Now, so in other words, they want as much money as possible to go toward the programming itself. However, you can't carry out the programming unless you have the right people in place. So for in certain situations, it makes sense to pay the salaries of certain people who are making sure that that programming gets done and that it gets done well. And again, it's still about limiting risk, right? It's okay to spend that money on the right person who makes sure that that the activities of the grant get carried out, that the activities of the grant will be successful. We want the emphasis to be on programming, but sometimes you need to pay people to make sure that that programming gets done. And there are certain situations where it makes sense to use grant money for that. But again, just keep in mind that the idea is the important issue is that as much money as possible is spent on programming. And you could interpret that as, spending some faculty money or staff money to make sure that that programming is successful. Do you have any restrictions on international faculty or international students? It depends on what you're seeking to do, but the rule of thumb is all activities that the center carries out should be done for the good of the center. So if you're considering what activities to do and the activity doesn't seem to be related to the center at all, that it doesn't support the center's activities, it doesn't help expand the center's activities, it's not really good for the center, it's good for some individual faculty member or some individual student or something like that, then it's not going to be allowed. We'll rule it out of the budget is what we would do. Okay, what's allowed is activities that support the center. So that's sort of the rule of thumb that you should keep in mind. That doesn't, sometimes international faculty, I mean, this happens a lot actually, international faculty will be invited over from somewhere and you'll spend money on their travel and you'll spend money maybe on a small honorarium or something like that. And they'll come and they'll, be a guest lecturer in a class, or they'll hold some sort of meeting where they present their research or something like that. That's considered good for the center if it's related to center activities. Now, if you bring them in and they're talking about, I don't know, how to make the best ice cream or something like that, that's not really going to support the activities of the center. But it is often the case that international faculty come over and are paid to come over to help further the activities of the particular center. So I guess the short answer is it depends on what you're asking them to do. Any other questions? Still have time if there are any more. Going once, twice. Sold. Oh, here we go. There's another one. Can we develop a new program or should we have? I don't understand this question. Can we develop a new program or should we have for now? Are you talking about developing a new center? Unsuli? A new center, yes. The grant money can be used to establish a center. Yes, that's in the statute. So and in the first year, you can use 90% of the cost of establishing the center can come from the government. And then obviously you'll want to have a good plan in place for once the center is established. But yes, the money can be used to establish the center. Another question, can funds be used to finance scholarships for students at partner institutions abroad if these students are participants in the center's activities? It's kind of specific question. I would need to deal with that individually. Send me an email about exactly what you're talking about, what the plan would be in such a, this is for Nicole Hunter. Please feel free to send me an email. That gives me some details on that, and I'll be happy to answer. For MSI institutions, how do we take advantage of the collaboration points? Add more MSI, or is it only business collaborations? I don't. I don't fully understand the question. If we are an MSI, can the center be interdisciplinary with a main focus on international business? That answer is yes. The one who asked, who was it? Kavita Kapoor. Can you send me an email about that? My email is on the screen here. Can you please define indirect costs? Indirect costs are what the money that has to be spent to basically run a center. So facilities costs, electricity, that kind of stuff. Sort of basic costs that are not directly related to the grant. They're indirectly related. I saw doctoral student support from the previous project. Is it a database? Is it related to scholarship or supporting students' conference attendance, etc.? It could be both. It depends. Some grantees have done both of those. It's possible. Is tech an indirect cost? Yes. Well, in most cases, yes. It actually depends. Is tech an indirect cost? Sometimes it's direct cost. It depends on what it is that you're seeking to do. So if you're seeking to get access to a research database or something like that, that might be direct. And that might be a direct cost, like a cost of doing the grant, cost of doing business, basically. But if it's just, we have computers and we need computers to do our jobs, that's typically an indirect cost. If we partner with an international institution, can the new center be located in the partner country on the partner campus? If you partner with an international institution as part of a consortium, you will be deemed ineligible. It has to be a U.S. institution of higher education. A primary institution for this grant cannot be an international institution. Is the cost share 10%, 30%, 50% for renewing CIBERs? Yes, it is. You can do just 10%. So the cost of the grant times 1/9 in the first year, the cost of the grant times 3/7 in the second year, and then 1-to-1 after that. Basically, at the beginning of each grant period, all CIBERs are considered new. I confirmed this with program attorneys last time, just so you know, Jim. Are virtual systems tech that facilitate global interaction direct cost or indirect cost? I would have to know much more to answer that question. I would need to know much more about what it is that you're seeking to do. The answer is probably indirect. I would say there's a really good chance it's an indirect cost and not a direct cost. But again, Kendall, just curious as to why the Africa priority was dropped. I don't think it was part of the last one either, but it was dropped because it was no longer a priority for the department. Can't say much more than that, I guess. All right. Oh, wait, one more. Can we partner with foreign government for some activities? Again, it depends on what you mean by partnering, what exactly you're talking about. I would need to know much more specific details about that in order to answer that question. Feel free to email me. Everybody on the call, feel free to email with any questions, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can. Can other sources of federal funding, NSF or NRC or DOC funds, be used for cost share? No. You're welcome, Arminda. Nice to see you. All right, I'm going to wrap up. If you have any other questions, please feel free to email me. I'll be happy to help you in any way I can. And thank you all for attending. I hope this was helpful, and I'm happy to provide any more help. Take care, everyone.